Hornady's bullet comparator gauges right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Okay folks, so I want to show you another Hornady product that's part of their sort of comparator and gauge lineup series. So I kind of can't show you this without showing you a tool that goes with it. So this is the overall length gauge. So I talked about this in a recent video when you would have seen me use it to measure and set up for a seating depth test. If you didn't see that video and you want to know the practical application of that, go back and check that video out. But basically what this is, you get these modified cases from Hornady, or you can drill and tap them yourself if you're shooting something like a Wildcat or an oddball case that they don't offer. Now they offer 99% of them. I think there's about 50 different cases they offer. And for the price of them, it's quick and easy just to pick one up in your chosen caliber. So instead of having a primer pocket, it's been drilled and tapped. And so what you do is you then screw this onto the back of the overall length gauge. Now I don't personally own one, but there is actually a curved version of this overall length gauge with a flexible rod, and that allows you to check the headspace of things like lever actions and autoloaders without having to disassemble them all down. And obviously some firearms you can't even disassemble them far enough to be able to put a straight gauge in. But Hornady recommend you use the straight gauge as often as possible because it will provide you the most accurate result. So now that you've got that case screwed on there, you'll notice a notch in this gauge here, and that will come in handy in a second when I show you how we're going to measure it. So the short of it is you take the projectile you happen to be shooting. This is a 75 grain boat tail hollow point, and with the Hornady case it will be a nice free floating fit inside the neck, and you'll basically push that in. I usually leave it just out a touch like that, just to allow you to chamber a little bit easier. You probably want to bring it out about just so where the projectile's not really moving around. You don't want that projectile to take a nosedive inside your chamber and then not provide you an accurate result. So now you would insert this into the chamber of your firearm. I tend to grip it here on this aluminium collar, push it all the way home so it's fitting nicely into your chamber. Then you can undo the brass thumb screw and you basically push the projectile forward until it contacts the lands and grooves. You don't want to provide a lot of force. Obviously this is only a plastic rod here in the center, but you just want it in there firmly. Once you've done that, you relock the brass thumb screw and you then extract the gauge out. Now what you'll end up doing is leaving the projectile just stuck in the lands and grooves. That's good because you know it's actually made contact and it's stuck in there. Then you'll have to get a ramrod, put it down from the muzzle end. I know we all hate doing that, but you have no choice in this case, and drop the projectile out. Once you've got it out, you can reinsert it back into the case here, leaving your thumb screw locked, and now you can start measuring. So this notch corresponds with the jaws of your calipers. So now I can measure the overall length. Now I've just made this up on the spot here. Most rifles won't be able to load a 223 case this long, but there's your overall length, right? So just give it a couple of goes, make sure it's nice and square. Okay. Now, that might be fine, but you might have an inconsistency in your projectiles too. And this is where the next gauge that I'm going to show you comes in. Now, I've mentioned this before, this box is 3D printed, does not come with the comparators. They come in a standard plastic blister pack. You can buy these, I've seen them for sale on Etsy, and I think even eBay. Somebody's 3D printing them out there and they ship you the finished product like this. I printed this one personally myself, and you can get this 3D printable file online as well. You just Google search Hornady comparator set case, and I think it was on MakerBot's Thingiverse, but I could be wrong there. Now we're looking at these little guys here. If you're interested in the head spaces, check the previous video, I'll be covering those. So I know with a 223 Remington, I need the 2-22 gauge, right? I'm going to need the comparator body. Now that's universal between the bullet comparator gauge and the headspace comparator. The anvil base, which comes separately. I believe the deluxe kit does include it. And I'm going to need my little Allen key. Right, so we'll take that case away for now. Okay, so what you want to do is take the gauge, insert it in the comparator body, and just apply a little bit of pressure. You want to make sure it's seated firmly and it's not going to move further in on you during the process. And then I just gently do up the little grub screw. It doesn't need to be super tight, you don't need to crank on it. And then what you do is you open your caliper jaws, make sure the brass thumb screw is backed out. These are all aluminium gauges, so they're not going to scratch or anything, and just really nice quality. So basically you're going to tighten that down. I always close the jaws just so it tightens down evenly and square, and make sure it tightens all the way into the jaw in there, so it doesn't move on you halfway through the process. Now if you didn't own the anvil base, then you could just do it like this, right? Which works out okay, right? But I personally find that the anvil base makes your life a whole lot easier. So once again, I like to close the jaws up on the caliper so it holds it in place, and then just tighten the brass thumb screw. And of course, you have to zero it out again. So now we're going to measure from the base of the case to the ogive of the bullet. Okay, now the reason the ogive is significant is that's what's actually making contact with the lands and grooves. While it's good to have a consistent overall length of projectile, the ogive is far more important. So insert it in there, and now what you can do is I gently rotate the projectile to make sure it's sitting in there. Sorry, I gently rotate the loaded case to make sure it's in the right place, and then you can see my base to ogive length. Right, I can pull it out and I can check another one and make sure they're roughly the same. Alright, and so we can do that set. Ooh. So they're all relatively the same. I'm pretty happy with that. Now you could also do this on factory ammunition as well. You might find that between lot to lot these will vary, and like I said, because the ogive's the part that's contacting the rifling, that's the most critical part, and you may be able to batch your ammunition up a little bit and get more consistent groups. So the other thing you can do with this kit is remove the anvil base. Now we've obviously set this up, so now we can measure, and I get it in the right place, the base to ogive based on your particular rifle's chamber. And so we can see the difference between a loaded round and what the chamber says. So now we know how far away from the lands and grooves that projectile is of that loaded ammunition. Now the other thing you can do with this, if you're a serious reloader and you're looking to group your projectiles, the other thing you can do, I'm actually going to reinstall the anvil just to make life easier. Now sorry, when I measured the gauge I failed to zero it after removing the anvil, as you can see there, because it's now zeroed. Now you can just measure individual projectile as well. So if you're a reloader that's chasing the tiniest groups possible, you can now measure the consistency of your projectiles. And once again, you can potentially group those by batch, providing you more consistent reloaded ammunition. So a whole lot of neat little things you can measure with this kit. Like I said, extremely high quality. You can see the nice evenness of the anodizing. I'd expect nothing less from Hornady, to be fair. And when you're all done, just undo the little brass thumb screws like that, and you can put them all away. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I release new videos every Friday, so hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on anything. See you in the next one.